In 1988, Hankuk began his career as an attorney in Santiago, Chile. Since then, Latin America has been the primary focus of his career. Attorney Hankuk is now active beyond Chile, in Ecuador and Spain. Based on his professional experience, he taught Latin American law as a professor at the Law School of Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. He also serves as a legal advisor in cases of exchange between Korea and Latin America. We will hear from attorney Hankuk on Heart to Heart. During the Korean War, Korea received assistance from many countries, and Ecuador is one of the countries that advocated the adoption of a UN resolution to send troops for Korea. Korea and Ecuador have maintained good relations since 1962 when they established diplomatic ties. Today's guest has flown from Ecuador. Joining us today is Hankuk, Ecuador's Korean attorney who serves to connect Korea and Latin American countries. Hello and welcome to Heart to Heart. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, now I am aware that you are multilingual. You speak three languages, Korean of course,
Trilingual, yes.
English and Spanish.
Correct.
So could you perhaps give us a brief introduction in Spanish?
Ah, really? Jennifer, es un placer estar con usted en esta entrevista tan importante para mí, porque siendo un coreano trabajando en América Latina, para mí siempre es un desafío presentar al público coreano cómo es la situación de América Latina y en especial en la práctica de leyes.
Wow.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Wow, that was a wonderful introduction. Although I only understood parts of the introduction, the very beginning, I think a few words. But for our viewers that don't speak Spanish, could you possibly give us an introduction in English as well?
Okay, Jennifer. I'm Korean working as Latin American lawyer in Ecuador, covering all the neighbor countries from Mexico to Argentina, where you can speak and understand Spanish language. I work for Korean companies, and my title of Latin American lawyer was given by my clients, not by myself, because my professional work scope covers a lot of countries, a lot of business areas, and that's why I earned that title. And then there are three common denominators for Hispanic countries in America, which are language, which is Spanish, religion, which is Catholic religion. The third one is law. So if you are a lawyer from one of those countries in Latin America, you are entitled to be called as Latin American lawyer.
Ah, I see.
That's why.
That's quite interesting. Now, there are many areas of legal practice an attorney can pursue. So what are your areas of focus then?
I have an expertise in international tax law, which is very complex but very important for Korean corporations. And I also work in such areas as labor law, immigration law, and public purchase law.
Then could you tell us, at this point, how many Korean companies have actually entered into the Latin American market, and how is it that you help them? How do you offer help to them?
There are many Korean companies. I cannot give the exact figure, but such companies as Hyundai, SK, Kolong, which I represent in Ecuador, they work in very different countries and business areas. And I have the privilege to be 1.5 generation Korean. It means that I have the combination of two cultures,
Right.
Korean and Latin American. So I can be an effective intermediary or bridge between the two cultures. When you practice law as a Korean lawyer in Latin America, you not only have to know the local law, but also the Korean mentality.
Right.
And
Exactly.
that's the point.
So you not only do you know the Korean law and of course Latin American laws like the back of your hand. I mean, you have this understanding of both cultures as well, and that is how you are able to do what you do.
I think that's our comparative
Yes.
advantage of being a 1.5
Absolutely.
generation.
What kinds of legal consulting services do you offer? Could you possibly be a little more specific? Give us a few examples.
Basically, I was involved in more than 10 public purchase bidding process, helping Korean companies, which is very challenging because competing with different companies around the world, and is very important to give a proper legal assistance in accordance with local legislation of Latin America.
Right.
So I think that's the point where I could give a better service than others.
Right, and communication is crucial when it comes to, I guess, providing consulting services as well. But I would imagine that developing relationships with attorneys in Latin America is perhaps just as important. So could you tell us about this as well?
The main two keywords for my legal practice in Latin America are networking and coordination. Actually, I was working with lawyers, colleagues from such countries as the Dominican Republic, Mexico, Nicaragua, Peru, Colombia, and Chile. So it's quite challenging to organize and coordinate a good job with my colleagues over there and to get a satisfactory outcome for my customers' need. So that was the job where I specialized my ability.
Okay. Now, this was last May when South Korean Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun visited Ecuador and met with Vice President Otto Sonnenholzner. And I'd like to ask you, what changes have been made or what changes can we expect to see in the future, in the trade environment between Korea and Latin American countries?
First of all, I have to mention about the personal experience of being near the Prime Minister, who was in Quito, Ecuador in May this year. And it was very, very emotive to see how he earned the heart of Ecuadorian people through his noble and warm personality. He made a great discovery talking with Vice President of Ecuador, Otto Hosner, when he said, in 1976, 43 years ago from now, the first 5 cars of Hyundai Pony were exported to Ecuador as the first country that received the Korean cars. And then one of the 5 buyers happened to be Otto's mother.
Oh, really? That's amazing.
Yeah.
How did he find out that it happened to be his mother?
Yes, they were talking about the first exportation of Korean vehicles.
And how his mother had...
Yes, his mother was the buyer, one of the 5 buyers. And the Prime Minister Lee mentioned about that a delightful coincidence in every meeting that he had with authorities, including President of Ecuador, Mr. Lenin Moreno.
That's amazing.
And after his visit, I understand the two countries accelerated their business talks and negotiation for the commercial agreement, which is called SECA. It's kind of free trade agreement.
Oh, that's a very interesting story. What a small world, right? Now, also, could you tell us about your current visit to Korea? Because just before we walked into the studio, I asked you, when was the last time you came to Korea? And you said it was about 2 years ago.
That's right.
That's been quite a long time. So what brings you to Korea this time around?
If you want to keep your title of Latin lawyer, you
should
must
stay there.
be staying there rather than visiting. Korea. Really, I work a lot in Latin America, covering different countries, and I prefer to stay in the region unless there is an emergency to come to Korea. And this time I was asked by one of the major local governments in Ecuador to assist and accompany its authority to participate in a Latin American Environment Forum co-organized by the Ministries of Environment and Foreign Affairs.
Okay, so that is what you have been keeping yourself busy with here in Korea. And our staff, actually, crew went out to film that. So we'll take a look at how our guest has been very, very active and busy in Korea. And we'll be back right after this. Recently, attorney Hankuk visited Korea. During his visit, he had a seminar with the Korean Council on Latin America and the Caribbean in Songpagu, Seoul. Such an occasion is a moment for him to be updated with the latest exchanges between Korea and Latin America. As an expert well aware of the local condition in Latin America, he also advises on difficulties that may arise in exchanges between Korea and Latin America.
우리 기업체들이 중남미 진출하는데 여러 가지 그 법적인 또 뭐 재무적인 문제들의 그 장애물을 가지고 있는데 오늘 그 저 하 변호사님 말씀을 듣고 많은 부분 우리가 같이 그 장애물을 극복하고 중남미 진출에 큰 도움이 될 수 있는 그런 그 가능성을 보았습니다.
As an attorney with a specialty in Latin American law, Hankuk has a close relationship with the Korean Council on Latin America and the Caribbean.
Many Korean small and medium-sized companies are eager to enter the Latin American market, but they need proper advice from local experts. And I will keep working on this project of giving the Latin American information for Korean companies in the future.
Let's hear more from Hankuk, an experienced attorney in the field of Latin American law. It was in 1988, quite a long time ago in Chile, that you obtained a license to practice law. So what made you decide to pursue a career as an attorney, and could you possibly tell us about the specific requirements needed to become a lawyer or to practice law?
Yes, I was admitted to law school of University of Chile in 1980 through a special admission procedure for foreign students. And I spent 5 years to finish my coursework. And later I did 1 year of practice, 1 year of thesis, and 1 more year for preparation of national bar exam, which is a really demanding exam. It's a public exam. That means that in a hall full of people, almost 200 people, you are being asked by your professors, teachers, and you have to answer all the complicated questions during 1 hour.
Okay, so it's not like a one-on-one interview that people are usually, I guess, used to. So we're talking about professors asking you questions in front of a 200
people,
audience.
and 3 professors for
professors.
each subject, like constitutional law, civil law, penal law, etc.
And you have an audience of 200 people
Yeah.
watching you.
Yes, I failed in the first try.
No.
And after 6 more months of hard working and studying in a cottage near the Pacific Sea, I could make the second chance, and finally I got.
Okay. Well, in the 80s, I understand there were only like 4 law schools in Chile.
That's
and
right.
you were the only Asian student
Correct.
to study in law school in Chile. So what did you find most difficult back then in school?
When I was in the prestigious law school of University of Chile, which produced 16 presidents of Chile. The level of of education was so high, and as a foreigner who began to speak Spanish just 2 or 3 years ago, it was really a difficult one. Some professors said after the examination, some test said, this student made the answer in his language. I cannot understand anything. And also I became object of some bullying from my friends. Yeah.
Because you didn't speak the language? Or?
Because I was Asian,
You
the
were
only
only
Asian student. And some friends were laughing at me, asking me over and over whether I was Japanese or Vietnamese or Chinese or Mongolian.
Right.
I repeated that I was Korean, I was from South Korea, and they ignored it and making me mad at that kind of joke. And after 4 years, they are my best friends.
Why?
Yeah.
Why did you let them be your best friends?
And I still have a good relationship. And 2 weeks later, I will be in Chile, participating in the 35th anniversary of graduation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
With your best friend,
Yeah,
the one
my
that
best
bullied
friend,
you at the time.
Who made me crazy.
I know. So it's amazing how you were able to cope with these difficulties. But I think back in the 70s, this is when not many people were aware. I mean, they didn't know much about Korea. You know, I went to school in the 80s, 90s, for example, and people would ask me, where are you from? I'd say Korea, and they would automatically ask, North Korea or South Korea? So in the 70s, yeah, I think I can imagine, you know, the difficulties that you might have experienced.
That's right.
But
We have the same experience.
yes, when it comes to Latin American countries or that region, I mean, there isn't a large Korean population, I believe, and I don't think a lot of travelers, like Korean travelers, travel to that region as well,
Yes.
compared to other regions.
Jennifer, that's a very good question. I would like to take advantage of this interview to advise all the Korean travelers who visit Latin America to get a closer communication with the Korean embassies in any Latin American countries that they visit. Because I witnessed a lot of cases where the failure of communicating with the Korean embassies put in a very dangerous situation my Korean compatriot. So it's very important to carry always with you the emergency telephone number of the Korean embassy where you will be traveling.
I see.
And quite important that you always think about asking a legal assistance to a local attorney as well as a Korean consul there when you are called for the very first police declaration, for example, or court declarations. So it's very important that you ask for the help from Korean embassy there.
I think it's just the fact that not many people are aware of these concerns. And we're seeing more and more people traveling to all parts of the world. And many, even females, traveling alone to remote areas around the world. So safety issues is
Yes,
something that we all should be concerned
there are
about.
more than 18 million Korean people traveling per year. So it's not easy to have control
Right.
of each one of them. But as a traveler, you may be aware of the risk that you will take when visit some country like Latin America, where the street security is not that high as other countries. And I would request all the Korean travelers to be well informed before embarking on their journey to Latin America.
Thank you for that great piece of advice. Very important. Now, you have taken on many, many cases. Is there a particular case that you remember to be unforgettable that you can share with us on the show today?
Yes, the most memorable case for me is Han-Jisoo case, which is described in Wikipedia because it was a landmark case which involved not only Korea and Honduras where the incident occurred, but also Australia, UK, and Holland. And it occurred between 2008 and 2010 because a Korean lady named Han Jisoo was there taking a course of skin scuba master course, and she was involved in a false accusation of murder. And later on, she was unjustly arrested for more than 1 year and months. And after all, she was acquitted completely by a Honduran court because we could prove her innocence.
Right. Wow. To be accused of a crime not committed and to be locked up for over a year, I can't imagine what it must have been like for her. But luckily.
Yes, it was a
Yes.
very painful and traumatic experience, but now she's doing well. I
That's
will
great to hear,
meet her
yes.
day after tomorrow in Seoul.
that's
yes,
right.
yeah, Han Jisoo.
Wonderful. I see. I don't know, for some reason, when it comes to laws and legal systems, it's just too difficult to comprehend or even start to comprehend.
I think the barrier is until you can get the so-called legal mind. Once you have a legal education, you realize that you can express your knowledge
Sure.
through legal terms, and you can understand the legal world. That's the difference.
Have you ever experienced maybe issues, problems, whatever it is, having to deal with two different legal systems?
For example, in Latin America, once you are married, all the properties acquired by the spouses belong to a common ownership, common property. While in Korea, we have individual ownership of our assets acquired
Yes.
by each one of the spouses.
It's a matter of choice,
Yes,
right?
Yes, whether husband or wife. So it means that you can buy your property like a house or like a car by yourself without the approval of the other spouse.
Right.
But once acquired and you want to sell it, you need the approval of the other spouse, which became a surprise for many Korean clients in Latin America. And what is this? I signed purchasing this house and car. Later, my wife is in Korea and I have to sell it and I need her approval. That's the difference between two legal systems. Also, in labor law, when you submit your resignation letter, you don't have right to get the severance pay, contrary to what happens in Korea. Even though you resign from your job in Korea,
Right.
you are entitled to get the severance pay here. But there, no. Those kind of differences are very interesting.
Right. Of course, we're not saying there, which is right and which is wrong. We're talking about the differences.
Yeah, each country has
right.
its legal culture.
Sure.
Yes, and I think it's quite interesting to know the differences and give the proper legal assistance to your client.
Sure. Now, you left Korea decades ago and have established your career abroad. So I'd like to ask you our final question, which happens to be, what's next? What do you have planned for the future?
It's my strong desire to keep my condition as a qualified and effective Korean lawyer working in Latin America. But I also feel myself committed to help local people in Andean countries like Ecuador, like Bolivia and Peru, there are many indigenous people who need legal assistance. Some of them even don't have their ID cards or birth certificate. I found that in Ecuador, I can give legal pro bono service for local people to solve a lot of status, civil status problem and the legal problem as well. So I will keep working there as a Korean, as a Latin American law lawyer, and I hope that my service can give a chance of reaching the two continents, Asia and Latin America.
I'd like to thank you very much for joining us on the show, and I feel that we were very lucky to have you agree to come on the show because, once again, as I say, this is your visit in 2 years. Thank you for providing us with all the information that we were able to receive today, and I hope that you continue to touch the hearts of many people and also provide legal assistance to those that really need the assistance.
Thank you, Jennifer, for this opportunity and for your staff.
Thank you.
Who kindly invited me for this important opportunity.
Thank you. 감사합니다.
감사합니다. Gracias.
Gracias. And today we had the privilege to speak with Latin American lawyer Hankuk, an attorney in Ecuador. Now we wish him all the best of luck as he plays a crucial role in guiding Koreans and Korean companies through cases of conflict and issues. Thanks for watching today. I'll catch you again next time.